Now that you've been introduced to the circle of fifths, it's time to take a look at how to use the circle of fifths in order to determine what the key signature is given the starting note of a scale, as well as take a look at a shortcut about how the entire circle of fifths process can be sped up for identifying what the starting note of a scale is or identifying the number of sharps in a key signature. So we're going to use E major as our first example here. Now the first thing to determine is whether E major is a sharp key or a flat key. Now the easy answer is that it's a sharp key. Now how do we know this? Well, with the exception of F major, which is the only flat key that doesn't contain a flat in the name, all other flat keys actually have a flat in the name of the key signature, like E flat major, A flat major, or D flat major. Now, since E major has no flat, because the equivalent flat key would be E flat major, we know that E flat major is therefore a sharp key. Now, the next thing to figure out is how many sharps are contained within E major, and we can use the circle of fifths in order to solve this problem. So if we start from our home key C major with no sharps and no flats, we know that if we're dealing with a sharp key, we need to go up a perfect fifth from C until we finally get to E. So if we count up perfect fifths, C, D, E, F, G is one perfect fifth, G, A, B, C, D is 2, D, E, F, G, A is 3, and A, B, C, D, E is 4. So because we've gone up 4 perfect fifths from C in order to get to E, that must mean that E major is a sharp key that has 4 sharps, and since we know the order of sharps is Father Charles goes down and ends battle, we have just identified what the 4 sharps in E major are: F, C, G, and D sharp. And then, since we've written out the key signature, all that we need to do is write out the pitches of the E major scale starting on E. Let's write it starting from the bottom line of the treble clef here. And I like to personally sing out the scale like this as I count, just to make sure that I'm writing the correct number of pitches. So an E is right around here. Do. So I would go do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. And I'm revealing that I'm definitely not a tenor. So there we go. This is the process of using the circle of fifths in order to identify what the correct key signature is and write out the scale exactly like this. Now, for the students that are wondering, is there a faster way to do this? The answer is indeed yes. So let's work backward. Let's say that we are given the key signature here of 4 sharps, but we don't actually know that it's E major. Is there a shortcut that we can use in order to retroactively prove that these 4 sharps go with E major? Well, the first thing that we need to do is we need to find the rightmost sharp in the key signature. So if we start at the treble clef and go all the way to the right to the last sharp on the right, we see that this is D sharp here. This is the final sharp in the key signature. And next we need to go up 1 semitone from this final sharp in the key signature. So on the piano, D sharp is the black key between D and E. So the next note would be E on the piano. This shortcut here has just identified that E major, or a major scale based on the pitch E, is the scale that makes use of the 4 sharps of the key signature like this, and we can see that this took a fraction of the time than working out the entire circle of the fifths here, but regardless of which way you choose, the result remains the same. But what about if we were to do this in reverse? What happens if we know what the starting note of the scale is, so in this case D major for our example, and we want to go the other way. We want to use a shortcut to identify the number of sharps that are in D major. Well, we know that D major is a sharp key because if it were a flat key, it would be called D flat major rather than D major. So if we simply reverse the directions from the previous shortcut, we can go down one semitone from the starting note of the scale, which is D. So if we go down one semitone, the black key in between D and C is called C sharp. Now, therefore, based on this shortcut that we've seen previously, C sharp, therefore, must be the last sharp in the key signature of D major. And since we know the order of sharps is Father Charles goes down and ends battle, that must mean that D major has two sharps, which are F sharp and C sharp, or if we were in the bass clef, F sharp and C sharp, just like this. Now, just to confirm that this method works identically and gives us the same result as the circle of fifths approach, we can test that to prove that this is true. So from middle C, if we count up a perfect fifth, C, D, E, F, G, and then if we count up a perfect fifth, G, A, B, C, D, we see that it took two perfect fifths to go from C up to D, and therefore D major would have two sharps, F sharp and C sharp, and since going down a semitone D from D to C sharp reveals that C sharp is the last sharp in the key signature, we can see that both methods confirm how to find the number of sharps in D major just like this. In part 2 of this particular video, we're going to look at the same shortcut, both how to use the circle of fifths in order to identify a key signature and the flats contained within a flat keys key signature, as well as look at a shortcut which is actually even easier to use with flats in order to identify what the starting note of the scale is based on the number of flats in the key signature. So join us in the next video for our exploration about how to determine flat keys.